Hey everybody, welcome to the Growing with Fishes podcast. This week we have the legendary Gypsy Nirvana with us. It's going to be a really great episode. We were having a really good time right before this, so I'm super happy to have him on. He's a lot of us have known him or bought seeds from him or have otherwise acquired genetics that started off through him, so it's really cool. So a lot of us have known him or bought seeds from him or have otherwise acquired genetics that started off through him. So it's really cool. Someone's got a loop going.
You know, I've got this playing on the computer and on the phone at the same time.
Yep. So just pause the. Yep. Just pause the audio.
I'm just trying to. You know, I've got this playing on the computer. Oh, there we go.
Okay. Cool.
Right. That's better. Sorry, all this technology is killing me. You know?
Oh, we'll get it.
It's a podcast anyway. I mean, for God's sake, well, couldn't they call it anything better than pod? What is a pod? You know, it's like something you keep seeds in, isn't it? It's like you keep seeds in a pod. Yeah. Are we all seeds in a pod now, gentlemen?
Oh, yeah. So we also have Josh from Dutch Blooms with us this week.
Hey guys, how's it going? Excited for the show.
Hello.
And we got Mr. Green Jeans, who was wonderful enough to help facilitate this episode. Thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for coming on, Gypsy.
Hello, there's a fellow follically challenged gentleman there. How do you do, Mr. Green Jeans?
Good. we finally get to see. We're out in public now.
Well, no grass is growing on a busy street. I think we've smoked it all, you know. That's
I
know. And then we have Roger.
How are y'all doing tonight? Well, this is gonna be a lot of fun. All of us working in the cannabis industry have heard about Gypsy Nirvana for years and decade or two. It's going to be awesome. I can't wait.
Awesome.
Well, let's hope I've got enough battery on my phone here. Let me just check what I've got. Oh, I've got 42% on the phone. So, yes, we should be good for an hour or so.
Cool. Yeah. All righty. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got started with the cannabis industry? And then a little bit about what happened to you recently after that.
Oh dear, we're going to need more than an hour for this, I think. But me, just some, low-grade English kid born in a caravan somewhere in Surrey, in England. I grew up, broken family. Where's the small violins? Go, do, 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 do. He grew up and he was very poor, and his father was very nasty to him at first. No, never mind. We won't get into too much detail. But yeah, eventually I grew up into a fine, strapping young lad. And one day I was found at the back of this music machine. It was a rock and roll venue back then in Camden Town, by this very large American lady who took me back to a hotel in Swiss Cottage called the Holiday Inn. And I ended up getting married to this lady and moving to America when I was 17. And I had a green card. They gave me one of those green cards when I landed. And I was in the United States for 5 years. So I kind of grew up in the States, from a boy to a man, I suppose you could say. I kind of escaped England. England in the 70s. It was terrible. Ugh. No future, really.
Well, it was the Irish Catholic thing, wasn't it? The Catholic Protestant. That's why it was really bad over there, wasn't it?
Well, no, it wasn't. There was a few bombs going off, but there's still a few bombs going off today, just in the name of another deity, So, I think
Where were you in the U.S. for the 7 years?
Initially, this lady that happened to marry me, I feel sorry for her already just talking about it. But she lived in a state, they call it the potato state, and it's called Idaho. And so I moved to Idaho. So as a kid from London, suddenly, transported to the wilds of Idaho, Boise initially, and put into this whole situation with this mother and her 2 daughters, one I was married to, whose father had just died, who owned a ranch and this, that, and the other. So I got a quick dose of culture shock into the American dream, so to speak. And so that didn't really last very long. I was still young. I was only 17 when I came over. And I'd only been working in the music industry in London, kind of as a roadie, you know, doing a bit of security for various bands. At that time, it was the whole punk thing was going down. So you had the Pistols, you had the Clash, you had the Damned, you had the Adverts, you had 999, all these different bands, London bands that were doing, kind of started to do real well. And then suddenly I moved to the United States. And then I left Idaho. I was only there for about 3 or 4 months, and I moved to California. And that's another story. Oh boy, on the road to California. Because I met up with this guy called Sam, who was a juvenile escapee from a detention center in San Jose, California. He was in Idaho, in Boise, and he became kind of like my only pal. You know, I used to go and get stoned with him. And one day he asked me to go visit a friend of his. I said, how close are you to this friend? He said, well, we're not really friends anymore because he owes me money. So knocked on his door, the guy answered the door, and then Sam tied the guy up in front of me, and then grabbed a couple of shooters out the house. He had this Colt 45 and this 22 target pistol, this Colt, what they call it, a long rifle or something. And he gave me this gun. I've never had a gun in my life, you know, and put it down the back of my pants, and it was chafing, you know, down. It was very uncomfortable walking around with guns. I tell you, it was very heavy things, nasty things. And anyway, he kind of nicked this guy's Chevrolet Suburban, and then I sat there as a 17-year-old next to this guy as he held up 3 gas stations and 2 motels. So suddenly, bang, you know, I'm right in the movie. I'm in the United States, and I'm, you know, sitting there shivering next to this guy who's holding up these places. What is he doing? Then he drops the thing off at the Greyhound bus station, and we buy tickets through to San Jose, California on the Greyhound buses. And of course, he wants to get off at Reno and he go on the gambling and Winnemucca. So we did that and eventually ended up on the freeway, broke. And then the cops picked us up, and they found out that Sam was a juvenile escapee from this detention center in San Jose, and took us downtown and let me go, basically, because I hadn't really done anything, and I didn't tell him what Sam had done either, but they just nabbed him and they let me go. It's kind of illegal to hitchhike in Nevada. So yeah, anyway, I could go on about these stories all day. And eventually arriving in San Francisco and getting a job at the Mabuhay Gardens on Broadway, working for Ness Aquino, who was the owner at the time. There's a Filipino dude. Then I lived in California for the best part of, I guess, 4.5 years, working for bands. I started managing a band called Crime there for a while. I worked for the Avengers, did some roadie work down at the Whiskey A Go-Go in LA, and then started working for the Monsters of Rock festivals. Bill Graham was putting on, a big concert promoter back then. Yeah, and got around. And then in 1980, the Clash came over to do a US tour. And I was at the Warfield Theatre on Market Street outside, and Strummer knew me from London because I've been hanging around with those guys back then, back in '76. And he asked me what I was doing. And like an idiot that time, I don't know why, but I was kind of a bit down on my luck. And I decided that I wanted to join the US Marine Corps. I walked into the Marine Army Navy recruiting depot on 3rd and Kearney Street in San Francisco, and signed up for the Marine Corps. So they were picking me up on the Monday. I went to see the Clash at the Warfield Theatre on the Sunday, and Joe Strummer's asking me, what are you doing? You know, what are you doing with your life? I said, I'm joining the US Marine Corps. He says, you're bloody mad. What do you want to be joining the army for? And all this, that. So obviously the Clash were really kind, although they dressed paramilitary, they were kind of anti-military. And that night they offered me a job in front of a journalist for the Rolling Stone, working for them. So I went on the road with them. I said, all right, I get $700 a month and all the food I could eat in the Marine Corps. They said, we'll pay you $700 a week. and all the food you can eat with the Clash. How about that? So I said, okay, but it didn't last very long. I ended up in, first of all, it was down to Los Angeles. And then from there, we went to Detroit. And then from there, we went to New York and Boston. So we did a bit of a US tour, but it didn't really last that long. And by the time we got to New York, the band wanted to go in the studio and record this album called Sandinista. And then they said to me, what do you want to do? So I've been invited by Lee Dorsey. I don't know if you heard of Lee Dorsey. He had a few hits back in the 60s, like working in a coal mine, going down, 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 you know, and ride your pony. And I'm not going to start a karaoke session, don't worry. Anyway, Lee Dorsey invited me down to New Orleans. So I went down there and he had an auto paint and fender shop. So I helped out painting some cars. And then I got a job in a honky tonk called Old Man Rivers down there. It's a sort of place that they have chicken wire around the stage, you know, so people throw bottles at them. Yeah, no, a few good gigs down there at Old Man Rivers. So then I was down in New Orleans. So I've been out to the west, been all the way down south, over the East Coast. And eventually I got invited back up to New York by a guy called Smut, who's a bass player in a rockabilly band called Levi and the Rockettes, as he wanted me to help them out at CBGB's, Max's Kansas City, and the Lone Star Cafe in New York. So yeah, I had a kind of life in the States of running around working as a roadie. I did do a bit of growing out there. When I first arrived, I met these guys, a couple of guys who had a field in Novato, and they asked me to kind of look after their crops. So I was kind of minding their crops for a couple of seasons.
What year was that? What years would that have been?
Must have been 78, 79. And back then, they were selling it to the Medical Marijuana Cooperative on Divisadero Street in San Francisco. They had this, even a Medical Marijuana Cooperative, all the way back then in the 70s. So that was good. Yeah, so I mean, I had a few years in the States. I ended up being kind of in partnership with a guy called Robert Hanahan in a nightclub there. We were putting on shows at the San Francisco Club for the deaf people. Deaf, you know, as in hard of hearing. And they'd initially come to me because every year they had an annual do. And since I was supposedly managing the loudest band in San Francisco at the time, which was called Crime, they used to dress up in San Francisco Police Department outfits and play heavy metal music, these guys, with massive, great big Marshall stacks behind them, you know, kicking out the jams. It was amazing. So these deaf guys wanted this band at their annual do, because then it was like hearing to them, because the whole walls were shaking, everything was, you know, everything was moving with the sound, and so were the deaf guys. And then a lot of people wanted to come who could hearing people, so they wanted to come and see the band too. So we started selling cover charges. The deaf guys started selling a lot of booze at the bar, and we made a business out of it. It opened 5 or 6 days a week, and it was going quite well for a few months, the San Francisco Deaf Club. And then I was mainly concerned with the PA and the door and all the lugging stuff around, you know, because I was just as kind of a strong guy there. I was working out at the time with the California powerlifting team down there at the Sports Palace. So I was a big chap, and I was a doorman, and these 5 Mexican guys came to the door. They called them wetbacks, and they were high on PCP and tequila one night. There was a big fight, and it went down the stairs, and I ended up in San Francisco General. Technically, I bled to death. I had a big chunk taken out of my leg. I was shot with a .22. So yeah, that movie was still going on over there, you know. I ended up in a bad way. So yeah, I kind of I've been from the gutter to the penthouse and back again a couple of times in the States. But always, wherever I went, I was always looking for good weed, you know, because it always helped me. When I was younger, they said I was a bit hyperactive. They even said I was maladjusted when I was in my teens. How dare they? How dare they say I was maladjusted? Anyway, this is what they said I was, but I found out when I smoked a spliff of some good Moroccan hash or something like that, or Lebanese, or some red leb or some blonde leb, or even some Pakistani, or whatever I smoked, it kind of chilled me out, calmed me down, and let me see the world in another perspective, as it has done to many of us. And it seemed to work for me psychologically at that time. So it's always been something I've used that way. And then later on in life, I was in my 30s, I had an accident, and I've hurt my back quite badly. And yeah, so I suffer a bit of a slip disc now. And cannabis kind of prevents me from having to take all these stupid pills the doctor wants to give me that just make holes in your stomach. So I don't take any pharmaceutical drugs these days, or try to avoid them. It's only in extreme situations where the pain gets over 10, on a scale from 1 to 10, that I might even contemplate doing that. So it's just coffee and some weed,
So why don't you tell us about the U.S. government's recent fun effort to have you come visit them from the UK?
Well, to tell you the truth, I thought it might have happened a long, long time ago, because I've been in this seed distributing game for well over 20 years now. I got interested in collecting seeds when I was out in Asia in the 80s, and then I started punting them out to a few people that wanted to breed with them. I mean, I've never really stuck around that long enough to really get a good, I mean, if you're a proper breeder, you got to stick around for years to make something that's really truly different and interesting. A lot of people these days, I mean, anyone can be a breeder. It's like, any of us guys can go out and maybe make a child with a woman that loves us, or maybe doesn't love us, but we can breed with her. But to produce something really spectacular, particularly with cannabis, you're going to need a lot of space and a lot of time to do it in. And I've been moving around so much, and this whole thing with 10 years ago, I moved to the Philippines. I decided I'd had enough of this mega city madness. I'd had enough of this crazy world, even busy. Money wasn't so important. I had a few bucks stashed in my back pocket, and I remortgaged my apartment here in the UK, and I moved to the Philippines. And I bought this piece of land on Palawan and built a prawn hatchery. So we were making baby prawns, or fingerlings, and selling them for 30 centavos a piece. You see, I thought this might be important to bring this up, because this podcast has something to do with fish, doesn't it? Yes, definitely. And what fish put up the back end of the fish, kind of the fertilizer that goes into, fertilizing your plants with the fish. Anyway, in all seriousness, yeah, I thought this would be an interesting project for me to get into producing baby prawns, but it proved to be quite complex and very difficult to run with the staff that I had there, because I had an alcoholic technician that I'd hired, Roy, and his merry crew of alcoholics who seemed to be drinking more than doing much work. And then as soon as I'd go away and had a good crop, I had 5 big tanks going, most of the time. They were all fully aerated, and they had up to 1 million baby prawns in each one. So I'd go away, I'd go to Manila, or I'd have to come back to the UK, and suddenly Roy would text me and say, "Oh no, everything died," Then I'd go back and find out that he'd sold everything to somebody. So, trust and things, trust issues, that was the biggest problem with that whole thing. Anyway, it was kind of idyllic living out there on the beach, beautiful piece of land. It had 6 hectares right on the beach on Palawan. And then I fenced and gated it, built a beach house, and got some fish pan as well. Got about 8 hectares of fish pan, where we could grow out the prawns. These were the tiger prawns, the bigger ones. So they fetched quite a bit in the market. They were getting 600 pesos a kilo. So it was a good cash crop to grow. Obviously, the complexities of growing prawns in that environment were quite great. So I had to kind of employ locals to help me out. And I've not really been a very good judge of character during my life with some people, and I tend to employ the wrong people, and then things go wrong and you lose. But it was an interesting project anyway, and it's still there today. It's not in operation, but maybe one day when they take me off the blacklist, I can go back. But anyway, back to this whole exciting episode with the federales. Before I got sidetracked about telling you about how my life was over there. Well, eventually, when I first went there, I met this lovely lady, and we had children together and fell in love and all this, that, and the other. And we moved from the island Palawan, where the prawn hatchery was, we moved to Subic. Subic is the old US naval base in the Philippines. And it's still used kind of part-time by then, although they don't lease the base anymore. The base is actually owned by Subic Bay Metropolitan Association. And so you can live on the base, and it's kind of like, I guess it's like a bit like living in the United States, because the whole infrastructure of the base was built by the Seabees of the Navy, you know, so it's American engineering. And then even the house that I managed to get there was built to American building standards, building code or whatever. So it was kind of Hurricane 5 proof. And I've been living in this lovely house with 2 young children and my wife since 2010, and it was 2013. One day I just got back from Angeles City, and I was upstairs having a gin and tonic, I think. Yes, I was having a gin and tonic. And then my wife's sister, who used to help out with the house, she came and knocked on the door, and she said downstairs there was some Filipino men that wanted to talk to me. And I said, oh, really? So I went downstairs, and it was the Bureau of Immigration. They'd come to not arrest me. They didn't have an arrest warrant. They had what they call a mission order. So I had to go with them to Manila. They said I needed to answer questions in Manila. And I said, well, I can answer questions here. And they said, no, you must come with us. And there was about 6 of these guys. And, you know, they're all carrying a piece. And then there was about 6 other armed guards around the place carrying assault weapons. So I thought, yes, I better not argue with these guys. You know, what am I going to do? Suddenly, you know, do my bionic ninja bit? And, you know, because I was in a movie once called Bionic Ninja. It's quite silly. Everybody takes the piss out of me for it. But no, the thought did cross my mind, but I thought, no, I'm in my 50s. I can't, you know, run like I used to. So in the end, I went with them, and they took me to Manila. It was about a 3-hour drive into town. And I said, where am I staying tonight? You know, I stay in a hotel or what? They said, oh, no, we sorted out the accommodation for you. And they took me to this camp called Camp Bagong Diwa in Taguig, an area of Manila. And today it's a police camp, and there's about 2,000 to 3,000 police in that camp. And on the same grounds is a prison and a detention center. The detention center is for the Bureau of Immigration, and that's where they took me. This is in 2013.
Thanks.
They took me in on August the 28th. I'll never forget it. Dates like that, you don't. So they took me to this place, and it was filthy. I mean, this place was disgusting. You know, I mean, I'm not a cleaner phobe or anything like that. You know, I mean, sometimes I might not do the cleaning for a couple of months, you know, with the vacuum cleaner. But this place was absolutely a disaster. You know, it stank. It was full of pollution from burning garbage. They took me into this office, and they just asked me a few questions. There was no proper medical screening or anything like that. And then once he logged me into the place, they just turned me through this iron gate, this barred gate. They put me into the detention centre proper, which was about the size of half a basketball court. And there was 2 blocks on either side of a forecourt, which was kind of a communal area. And then they opened up one of the side doors into the right-hand block, and they put me in there. And there, I had to find my own way. You know, suddenly you're put in with strangers, people that if you saw them in bars, you wouldn't want to sit down next to them and have a drink with them or anything like that, you know. Some really rough people and some really lost people, you know, people in various states of physical and mental distress. You know, a few murderers in there, a few Korean mafioso hitmen, a lot of people doing this shabu drug, which basically is crystal meth. So it's a lot of people, you know, absolutely fried their brains on that stuff. Yeah, it was kind of daunting, and I didn't really know what I was in there for. I hadn't really got a clue, because as far as I'm concerned, my business is legal in the UK. So I didn't really feel that the USA was after me, although over the years I've thought, well, maybe I've tempted fate a little bit too much, and they might come after me for some reason. But what it worked out was the United States has decided not to try and legally get me back to the United States to face these charges. They decided to collude with the Philippine government and try and kidnap me. So without due process of law, without any extradition warrant, without any warrant at all, after putting me in this detention center for 10 days, they tried to put me on a plane to the United States, to Los Angeles. Just totally extrajudicial, you know. It's like what we call an extrajudicial rendition. Well, that's a big word. But yeah, they were illegally trying to kidnap me, and I wouldn't stand for it. They took me to the airport. A good friend of mine, Nick Spanos, who kind of was going through a similar situation with the United States, trying to get him back to the States without going through the proper extradition process. He said to me, don't kick off in the jail, you know. He said, don't. He says, stay cool. And before they try and put you on the plane, dig your heels in. He said, just refuse to get on the plane, or refuse to do anything that they want you to do. Because if they're putting you, he said, if they're putting you on a passenger plane, then you've got 300 plus people on that plane that the captain is responsible for. And he's not going to want a bull in the china shop, is he? You know, so that was kind of my last ace in the hole. I mean, I was supposed to behave that way. It was all new to me. It's not as if it's not like something you do every day. So these guards took me to the airport. And then when I was at the airport, they tried to cuff me. And I put my hands above my head. And before I had left the jail, I'd taken all my medication for my back, because I had 3 pills left that I was taking at the time because I was in a lot of pain. And I'd taken these 3 pills thinking that if they're going to try and hurt me to put me on the plane, I won't feel much pain. So I was in a bit of a silly mood, laughing and joking with these guys while they're trying to put the cuffs on me. And this one guy, who was, of course, he's quite short. He's a Filipino guy. And he's trying to, I've got my hands above my head like this, and he's trying to climb up my body to get to my wrists, you know. And I managed to shake him off a couple of times. It didn't hurt him. I didn't make any violent action towards them because there was a lot of them and I wouldn't win, you know. Let's face it. I was just laughing and joking. I was in a real jovial mood, and it actually worked in my favor, because eventually this guy gave up trying to climb up me. And, you know, eventually he got a chair and tried to stand on the chair. And then I moved to the side again. And I said, look, guys, I said, look, I'm 250 pounds. You know, if you want to get me on that plane, you're going to have to pick me up like a piece of luggage and put me on that plane. But I'm not going to go easy. So I'll tell you now, it ain't going to be easy for you. And I said, besides that, I'll get my lawyer on you, because what you're doing is kidnapping. You do know what you're doing is illegal, do you? And, you know, using voice techniques and just a few jokes and just not being aggressive towards them, it kind of worked. And eventually their boss came along and he said, okay, we'll take him back to the detention center because he ain't going. The captain doesn't want him on the plane. So, you know, it wasn't a punch up or anything like that, because for years I've worked in security, and we've learned how to diplomatically resolve potentially violent situations before they get out of hand. So I was quite confident that I could pull it with these guys, pull it off, and it did work. There wasn't any, I'd seen them before, there was no US Marshals there. It was just the Filipino Bureau of Immigration. Because me being a Brit, you know, the Americans can't just grab me and take me anywhere they want to in the world. Or maybe they can, I don't know, but legally they can't do that. But if I was an American, oh, I would have been toast, you know. They would have had me straight out of there and on some sort of Conair flight back to the States. But yeah, I guess that was the best thing that I did. And then I came back to the detention center, and I was there for another 30 months, you know, before I could get out, before I could deport. Because I had to file cases, my lawyer filed cases against the Filipino Bureau of Immigration for all these, you know, inadequacies in what they were doing with me or not doing with me. And these cases were just sat on in the court. Eventually, the one in the Court of Appeals, they decided, and they said that, no, I can't have bail, but if I'm deported, I must only go back to the UK, because that's immigration law. If you're deported from a country, you can only be deported back to your mother country, your home country, or to your last port of call. So they sent me, they said that I could then deport back to the UK when I had dropped the charges against them. So first of all, I had to drop the charges that I had in the Supreme Court against the Bureau of Immigration. So my captors, you know, were the ones that I was trying to file charges against in Filipino courts. And of course, they didn't like that. So when my father was getting real sick in the summer of 2015, I was told he had leukemia. He only had months to live. I thought, screw it. These courts are never going to get to the point where they've made a decision on my case. I'll be here for 10 years or more before anything happens. And even the British Embassy officials come in. They had told me, they said to me that before there's been an English guy that was in there for 10 years while his case was being argued about. And eventually he was found not guilty, but he still did 10 years in detention, because how, you know, constipated the legal system is there and corrupt it is. I mean, while I was there, I mean, I was hoping, because I got a young family, I got a wife, I had a life. I was just starting a new company, Nirvana Salon Distribution. I just registered it at the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so I was trying to get this new company going just at the point where they pulled me in. So I had a family that's dependent on me and children. So, you know, I really wanted to get out and live my life and be with them again. The idea of starting a family again so late in my life and having children so late again in my life was to be around them and be a dad, you know. And the whole travesty out of what's happened to me, it's not the amount of money I've lost or the business I've lost or the brain cells I've had fried. It's the 5 years I've lost of family life with my wife and kids. That's something that you could never get back. Or, you know, even if, you know, the wildest thing happened and I got reparations for this, which I doubt very much will happen, but if that ever happened, you could never pay me enough to take away 5 years of my kid's life and being with my wife for the last 5 years properly, you know, as a family. So that's the great tragedy as far as I can see. But, you know, in a way, I guess some people can say you brought it on yourself by being involved in the seed trade. But it's very important for me since the very start to be involved in distributing seeds, because to normalize this plant in society, people have to see it. They have to see it grown. They have to see what a wonderful plant it is, how useful it is to them. You know, it's been used as a medicine for thousands of years, and it's just been so demonized in the last 80 years that the best way for people to get to know the plant basically is to grow it, you know, and to see that it's not a monster. It's not some mad, crazy, like Venus flytrap that's going to suck your blood, you know, when you're not looking. It's a very useful and beneficial plant. I mean, it's a plant that I was thrown in jail for back in 1985 when they caught me with a little piece of hash coming over from Holland to England, and I refused to pay a fine. So then I was sitting in a jail when I was 25 years old, wondering how to make a difference. What do? You know, I was thinking, I'm not the only guy sitting in jail because of weed, because of cannabis. There's thousands of guys that have been sitting in jail, or still are, maybe millions. So we've got to do something about this. And the best way, I thought, was put the seeds in the hands of people that might grow them. And that's what I did for over 20 years. And it seems to have worked quite a bit. Well, we're not all the way there, but, you know, things have changed quite radically in the last 20 years compared to what they were as far as legalization is concerned.
So
We
why
thank
don't
you for your efforts.
Oh yeah. So why don't you tell us about your breeding, and then about some of your different strains you like to work with, or maybe some tips on breeding, or you know anything about breeding really. You're one of the masters on that.
Well, you know, there are far greater breeders than me. I mean, as far as breeding goes, I wouldn't even call myself a breeder. I've not been able to produce a crop in many years, you know. And my main interest was collecting landrace varieties of cannabis, running around the world and finding really remote areas where you would find growers of cannabis that have been growing it for generations in that area, and bringing something different back to the West so Western breeders could work with those genetics. Now, I've been doing that over the years and supplying people. I think the last grow that I had was in 2003 in Amsterdam. Well, just outside in Meidrecht, had a grow going there with producing seeds, and then that got busted. And the Dutch are quite good about, well, I don't know if it's good or bad, but the police come around, empty everything out of the house that has anything to do with growing weed, put it in a dumpster and take it away, and then don't charge anybody for anything. It's like taking the toys off you, you know. So that was the last grow I had, was in 2003. So I haven't even been able, you know, to grow it freely in all that time. I didn't want to jeopardize myself in the Philippines by growing there, or my wife, or my children, because as you know, they have very draconian attitudes towards any type of drug in the Philippines that isn't sold in a drugstore. Now with the current president Duterte, you know, there's all sorts of human rights violations going on over there.
So what different varieties do you like? And tell us a little about the seed, your work with the seed selling and seed company that you have.
Yeah, well, due to my predicament over the last 5 years, naturally, a lot of my customers have found that it's better to go elsewhere because I've not been around and I've not been able to buy new stock, particularly. I've still got a lot of old stock that's left there. As my fortunes went down, so do the fortunes of the company. It's something that I have to get onto now and start reviving again. You know, mainly what I used to do was travel a lot and find seeds. I go and visit breeders and I'd buy seeds, or, you know, some people would buy seeds off me and people would make seeds and supply them to me, or I'd supply them to them. And I spent many years just traveling around the world, meeting many different breeders. As for my favorite type of weed, I guess, yeah, I prefer sativas, although, you know, in a pinch, if there's nothing around, I'll pretty much smoke anything. You know, if it gets you a buzz on, I mean, beggars can't be choosers sometimes. I mean, I was just locked up for 30 months 2 years ago, and I didn't really have any weed at all. Somebody came by one day with some very swaggy looking Filipino weed, and I smoked it, but I think I just imagined that I got high off that. That was just once while I was locked up. But yeah, I mean, when I got out, my tolerance was so low the first time I smoked something strong. And when I got back to the UK, some of the people that used to work for me, they were there waiting with weed and cava, this Spanish champagne, when I got out. And I got totally blasted just on a couple of hits because my tolerance was so low. These days, I don't smoke every day unless I feel the need. You know, it tends to take the edge off the pain in my back when I get it. But the back pain is on and off. It's not too bad mostly. But I don't think it's really, you know, a good idea to smoke all day, every day. It's not something that's good for me. Use it sparingly and sensibly, if I've got it, that is, you know, because at the moment, since I've been on bail for a year, and I just came off bail in the UK on this case of the United States was trying to extradite me. I just came off bail. So, you know, I don't know, should I start growing again? You think it's a good idea? Have I got a target on me now, you know?
Yeah, that's a hard question to answer too.
So do you want to tell people a little bit about your mission to grow growers and breed breeders?
Well, I think most people know about that. We've been growing growers and breeding breeders for many years. I mean, IC Mag has been up now since 2003, icmag.com, everybody. Very lively growers forum out there on the intrawebs. Check it out, icmag.com. Yeah, there's enough of the advertising. But yeah, we've seen quite a lot of growers through the years, and we still have some very good growers on ICMag, showing everybody, growing and showing, you know. Everybody can see what they're up to. And it's kind of a cool environment because everybody's got a different name to what they really are. So we don't know if that person's growing in California or if he's growing in Baluchistan, you know. So it doesn't see the legality of the whole thing is not important on the internet or on the website. So people just get on and do their thing there, and they show it or they don't. And it's built a community over the years that, you know, it's kind of been my solace. While I was locked up, there are still people out here vouching for me or remembered who the fuck I was, you know. So there's me thinking I was just going to disappear into this old Filipino death camp that I was put into. Saw some awful things there, you know, and nasty people. But now I'm out, and the next thing on my agenda is to try and get my family over here. It's not such an easy thing to do, is to get them into the UK. I've had my passport given back to me about a week ago, so then I could get a copy of it, a certified copy. It's a requirement for my wife's visa. So yeah, I'm concentrating on getting the wife and kids over here, you know. I really suffered through this whole thing. I mean, I'm sure that I roasted a few or boiled a few brain cells, you know. I just didn't feel right when I came out, and it's taken me a while to get my act together. You know, it was just being so contained and physically inactive for so long. It's wear and tear.
So, do you want to tell us more about your experiences working in the cannabis industry and as far as you know, different breeders that you're you know, really enjoyed working with or really enjoyed their stuff? Or
Yeah, well, over the years, I've got to know most of the players within the cannabis industry as far as the seed business is concerned. You know, all their different Dutch breeders, from Ariane at Greenhouse Seeds. Soma was a good friend of mine. Mao from Nirvana Seeds. The Dronkers people from Sensi Seeds. Hank from Dutch Passion, you know, Luke from Paradise Seeds. It's a whole big community of cannabis businesses in Holland, particularly. And I lived in and out of Holland for many years. I had a shop there called Seed Boutique, right on the single canal, about a block away from Dam Square. And I had that shop there for, I think it was about 6 or 7 years. But all these shops I had 3 in the UK as well. I had Hydroponic Systems, I had a Gypsy Nirvana, a tattoo piercing shop, and then I had a seed gallery as well in the UK. But with shops, you need employees, and with employees, you need to manage them. And there's me, you know, I'm all over the world. I'm running around all over the place. It's very hard to find the right people, because people you will hire invariably will be stoners, you know, and sometimes it's a little bit difficult to run a business with stoners. Yeah, because you're getting stoned all the time, and then things don't happen, you know. Things get forgot. Things get left behind. But anyway, you know, I was never trained as a manager or anything like that. It was just really about the quest to get more seeds out there, to get people growing them. And over the years, I managed to do that. I managed to get kilos and kilos of seeds out, not just the ones I sold, but with every order, we always send out free packs of seeds, as long as people will share them with others who might grow them. So, you know, it kind of had its own kinetic energy, the whole thing. And in this day and age, it makes me very happy to see so many more seed companies now, and quite a few in the United States are coming up. So Americans now, they don't have to order from abroad. They can order within the continental United States, and they can buy seeds from other Americans. And that makes things a lot easier for the industry as far as getting seeds and the genetics into people's hands that want them and need them, you know. So I've seen the seed company or the seed business come a long way. When I first started, there was only 3 seed companies that were sending internationally that I can remember. There was Mark Emery, there was Heaven's Stairway under Richard Calderisian, and there was me. Maybe there was a couple of others here and there, but we were the 3 main seed businesses. And then Emery got into trouble. And so, well, no, before that, I think it was Heaven's Stairway did, with Overgrow, got into trouble in 2006 and was taken down by the Mounties. And I think Emery...
Dutch Passion.
Sorry?
Overgrow that got in trouble. It was Dutch Passion, and that was on Overgrow, and they got shut down. Overgrow literally shut the website down because of the Dutch Passion seed sales. You mentioned Hank a while ago.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
My perception of it, that's kind of a little while after I came into it and started working in the business. And when they shut Overgrow down, it was my understanding it was because of the seed sales that they had, and their seed bank was called Dutch Passion. That's what they were selling on Overgrow when they got shut down.
I think it was Dutch Flowers, wasn't it? There was another sea company.
They
No.
have more than one. I thought that's what it was. But I'm sorry. Go on. I'm sorry to interrupt your story.
No, it's all right. It's good for you to interrupt because my voice is getting a bit rough. As good as some of you guys talk for a bit. I've got to pop outside and have a quick smoke because I'm at a friend's place and I can't smoke in here.
No worries. Thank you.
Because it's it's a part of their tenancy agreement.
Cool.
So I'm just
Thank you.
I'll just pop outside for a quick spliff and I'll be right back. Yeah.
All right. Well, I hope everyone is enjoying this episode so far. This has been really cool to hear about, kind of the evolution of how this all came together, and get to talk to someone that was generally very elusive in our market. So it's pretty cool.
Thanks, Mr. Green.
Yep. Are you? Yeah. Thank you again, Mr. Green Jeans.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, he's incredible. He's just he's a legend. I mean, to me, the distribution of genetics is really important. I'm sorry I didn't put more effort into it, more years ago. You know what I mean? It's really, and I know for him, it took a lot of courage. I mean, people, he was, breaking the law, and supplying tons of genetics here in the United States, and that's a huge thing. It was really a great service in, he's like one of the warriors fighting the good fight, so it's heartbreaking to hear about the jail thing. It's unbelievable that he would have to suffer for doing something, so big and so important. You know what I mean?
Plus the fact that he started the fight. He went ahead and just
started the fight.
Started that damn fight.
He started the fight.
Starting the fight. Yep.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, to bring change about anywhere, somebody's got to stick their neck out, haven't they? Some muggins has to stick their head above the parapet, to make anything happen. Otherwise, you just get ignored. And my idea of being a cannabis advocate and trying to make a difference was to do it with the genetics of the plant. Quite simple. I couldn't see the point in hanging outside police stations smoking spliffs. I don't really think that would do a lot other than piss off the policemen. But getting good genetics into the hands of people that then can use them either to save themselves from having to buy the weed, or because of their needs medicinally or recreationally or whatever they want it for, then it gets the plant out into the public domain. And once it's out there and people can see how beautiful it is, I mean, who can deny a cannabis plant in full flower? It's a sight to behold. It's a beautiful thing. So even just aesthetically as a plant, it's beautiful, let alone what it can do to alleviate whatever ails you. Not everything, obviously, but it certainly helped me in many ways during my life.
Well, sort of as a follow-up question, I guess, I mean, hearing your passion, and how do you feel about people being very exclusive with genetics? After hearing like you really put your life and your family, you know what I mean? And then the different guys are holding on to, cut whatever. That's got to feel a little offensive, I imagine.
Well, the thing is, nature is there.
Only
for all of
amateurs
us.
hold on to genetics. Only beginner breeders do that. It's something that they'll change their mind after they've been doing it 10 years or so. Trust me.
Yeah. Well, we've always had this.
And rappers.
Yeah. We've always had this, people trying to get proprietary with nature. You can't really own nature, and you can't really ban it. I mean, this is what's gone wrong with prohibition. They've tried to ban a piece of nature, an essential part, which is the cannabis plant, and it doesn't work. And you can't really own it. okay, there's some breeders that might put some work into developing a certain variety, but then why are they developing that variety? For what use? Are they doing it so that they produce seed crops and then sell the seeds? Are they producing it so that they can have some exclusive type of cannabis that nobody else has? I mean, you know, then they're getting proprietary with nature. I think genetics should be shared, and they belong to all of us in many respects. You know, I have a lot of respect for breeders. Very few of the breeders out there actually put a lot of time, effort, and years and work into producing something. But you can't really copyright a variety, can you? I mean, I guess you know, it's been going on the last few years about some people copywriting names. But in those names, what specifies the variety of cannabis that they've actually copyrighted? Don't they have to get its DNA profile to be able to copyright it properly?
I think it's branding. I don't think it's as much as they're actually being able to copyright it. It's more branding, right? They want the right
Exactly.
I own White Widow, or you know what, Blue
Dawn,
Blue Dream. Yeah, it's branding.
It's just the name, you know. I mean, but what about the genetics that's behind that?
Exactly. The pedigree is what's the most important thing. If you don't talk about what family you come from, you know, if you don't stand on the shoulders of the giants that came before you, then what are you? You got nothing.
Exactly. And really, we're all polyhybrids. You know, there's no pure humans, I don't think, you know.
Well, and
we're all a mixture of somebody else. Huh?
I was just saying, most of our polyhybrids are put out, you know, the fathers and mothers are put out by folks who did some serious work and put that out for free. You know, you know, we can go down the line.
So if we drink wine with a bunch of like fall crocus juice, can we make like a polyploid human?
Maybe it's worth a shot.
I guess that wouldn't work though, because they generally aren't fertile, right? I guess that wouldn't work for very long.
I don't know. I find it very interesting. I mean, there's so much going on in the cannabis industry now that some markets have been opened up suddenly with various types of legalization. I don't know. It's not really legal unless anybody can grow it like they can tomatoes, really, isn't it? You know, this is this whole thing with this tax and regulate this and do this with the plant, and then, you know, they're developing and creating more criminality with legalization than they had when it was prohibited. It's ridiculous, you know. I guess it's just more jobs for the boys, more jobs for the bureaucracies out there to run around and knock on our doors and tell us what we can do and what we can't do all the bloody time.
Taxes.
Well, the other thing is this bullshit with licensing and local control and little local townships having, you know, absolutely psychotic levels of demands on cannabis companies.
It's ridiculous.
Damn much to start a good cannabis out in the states that are legal. It costs $1 million, $2 or $3 or $4 million to open a pharmacy or have any kind of decent business, because the permitting alone is over $500,000, closer to $1 million by the time you get through with all of it. You know, just to have to apply, it's like $200,000 in some places, $400,000 further.
You're looking between lawyers, consulting, and applications and the whole thing, and then retrofitting your facility to meet the guidelines. You're looking at between 300 to 500K, in a lot of cases.
Jesus, it's ridiculous. They're just trying to they're trying to figure out how that, you know, if they're going to legalize it, they want to make more money out of it than they do with it in prohibition, I guess, you know. So it's about balancing the books. It's always about money to these people constantly. You know, they have no love for the plant at all. It's just how much they can make out of it all the time.
No, that's exactly it.
Yeah, you know, this thing you do, growing with fishes, back to, you know, the topic of the podcast. Yes. I had a friend years ago called Breeder Steve, and I used to go and visit him in Switzerland. And he was really into this growing with fish shit, you know.
I know he was the very first aquaponic person I found way back on what was the name of that? It was some grow forum, and he had a post from 1996. And what he did was he had, I remember this is the first post I can remember reading of him posting about fish, because I've been following him a long time as well. Is he had plants in hydrogen in net cups, and he was putting the fish shit on top of that. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I think, you know, it's a long time ago, and the intricacies of what he was doing there in that factory in Switzerland, you know, some of them, I don't know, they've been fried with my brains, but yeah, I was quite impressed. He had a setup there. He had a couple of aquariums and stuff, and he was growing his plants from the fish shit. So I thought it was great. You know, it's a very good way to do it, because you're getting all the nutrients you need from the fish.
Yep, that's what a lot of us here on the show actually do. So
yeah, so that's what you do, or what you go out and you set up small and large grows for people. You have like a business to do that, do you?
yeah, so we also have my own. Oh, I also have my own company, but I also do consulting, and then some of the rest of us do consulting or have our own grows, or you know, various things depending on what we're doing. But I've been lucky enough to learn and work in a couple of different countries, so that's been pretty cool as well. So this is Josh's from Dutch Bloom's greenhouse. Josh, do you want to tell us a little bit about what you got, since you're wandering through here?
Yeah, sorry, I was just having a smoke. I didn't mean to interrupt the conversation, but it's so cool with the pink lights and the sunset. Can you guys hear me with the fans?
Yep.
I'm just getting this greenhouse planted. These plants I actually just bought or bartered for, and they're not liking me too much, as you can tell, in my cold greenhouse at night, so they're getting a little acclimated. Of course, it is nighttime, so they are going to sleep. That's why I was showing these guys down here. These Paiho are really just jamming, but they are going to sleep, so they're all wah, wah, wah. But you can see, I don't know if you can see, I can feel these leaves are just so leathery. I just want to roll them up and like make some canagars or something. I've only been into sun grow for about 2 seasons now, and I'm just so impressed with sun grown cannabis. Even though I'm using these assisted lights, it's a different thing, in my opinion.
So that grow there, is that grow fed by fishes?
This is not. No. So I used to do a lot of aquaponic with fishes, and this is all just regular soil. You know, I mend it with, you know, whatever, kelp and guanos and stuff like that. And I'm just new onto my property, going through the legalization stuff. So I'll be working into, you know, supplying my own nutrients as I develop it. But this is
that's a lovely looking greenhouse.
This is the second one off this greenhouse, man. I put the first one in last fall, and so this will be my second pull. And I just got these lights. I'm really excited about it, guys. I actually just got this computer turned on the other day, and I'm learning how to use it. It's like next level for me, with all the staging. Actually, Roger, you probably know a little bit more about it than I do, but there's so much control in these greenhouses, more than the indoor grow. More than the way I had learned, but I got this little iGrow controller, and yeah, it's pretty fucking cool, guys. It's been you know, not as long for me as it's been for you, but it's been 2 years since I've been able to really bust a crop and have control. So I'm feeling pretty jazzed.
Yeah.
Now, is that light dep as well, or?
It will be. I don't have the light deprivation. It'll go between the two rafters. You can see each little section. It's another 20 grand, believe it or not. This shit is expensive. I just did my taxes, and I have just under 200 grand into this house this year, not including the lights.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's expensive.
So, it is, but I should be able to pull out, you know, 150, 250 pounds of, you know, trim flower out of it.
What are you getting these days for a pound of the herbage over there in California? I heard it price is going down all the time.
Yeah, I'm actually in Washington State, and it's, it depends on who you talk to.
Yeah.
People are getting down as low as 25 cents a gram. We're talking in grams now. So
Bloody
that's,
hell.
yeah, fuck, that's 250, even less. But people also get as upwards of, 4 a gram, and that's mostly indoor. There's still misconceptions about this stuff, and I have yet to enter the market here, to be honest. So I'm going to find out after this grow. But I plan to kind of be there at the top end level. I don't have a lot of I don't have any employees. It's just me. So I'm going to only sell ounces because we have to pre-package all this stuff. There's all these barriers, it has to come out of my facility pre-packaged in whatever container it's going to be sold in. So I'm going to do ounces and go low and just try to hit that, try to get into the black market, to come into the legal stores and buy organic flower,
Mm-hmm. Well, that looks like it'll keep you busy. That's a bloody great big greenhouse, that is, isn't it? How many square meters is there? How many square feet?
It's about 3,000 square feet.
Woo.
Yeah. So I have 1,800 square feet of, canopy, as we call it, right? These are 6 foot wide beds. This one's 8 foot wide in the middle.
That's good.
I could grow out of here for the rest of my life, guys, and just be like, keep twerking on it. I mean, you all know it's. I'm just super happy.
Yeah, I'd be super happy if I had a nice greenhouse like that too, young man.
I wish you did. I wish I could share some.
What's the width on that, John? What's the width?
It's a 30 footer. There we go.
Oh, it is a 30-footer. Mine's 30-footer too. Okay, that's what.
Yeah, 30 by 96. The beds are 90 feet wide or 90 feet long.
Yeah, that's me. That's me right there. I got same thing. You get a different design.
Well, and so
sidewalls.
Upgrades will be that it'll get a rafter that'll open up, a ridge vent, and then these guys will go on machines, motors, and roll up and down when they say. It'll get the light depth. And then I'm actually going to pull up all the beds and throw some PEX in there and do the radiant floor and kind of get in there and do a ground to air transfer system and just kind of tighten down, tighten up the parameters. I've got, grandiose ideas.
Once you get the radiant floor in there, that's going to be heaven in that thing.
Oh my goodness. I can't even afford. That's why I showed you the plants I don't have any heat in here because I can't afford to do it. Propane, fuck that. $1,000 a week. I mean, it might make sense in the overall numbers, but I just don't have the money right now.
Does it get that cold a lot there where you're at?
It gets into the 40s. They don't like it, and especially so. These guys right here that I just bought, they came from an indoor grow room, so they weren't used to going down this cold at all. But once the plants, my experience in the last 2 years is once the plants get used to it, they do just fine. Like these Paiho, they have no problem. I mean, they're ready to go to sleep any moment. But in the day, they're just praising Jesus.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what lights you got in there? Are those high pressure sodiums or what you got?
They're LEDs.
LEDs. Okay.
Yeah. I feel pretty mixed about it. I just got them. It was very expensive. An interesting thing that they're doing over here is they're actually rebating us on these lights. So there's 72 lights in here, and the total package cost about $115,000. But they rebated me, so I only had to put in $18,000.
Wow, that's a huge rebate, man.
Yeah, serious. I never would have done this if it wasn't for that. And then
is that like a government-sponsored rebate deal? How do you get that rebate?
No, it's the power companies. So there's private power companies, and their grids aren't big enough. This is what the deal is. Their grids aren't big enough, and so they're scared that if we all go online with HPSs, that will shut them down. And so it makes more sense for them to buy us out. by buying a
Gotcha.
cheaper light. You know, yeah. So the other cool thing beyond these being LEDs, I can't zoom in, but I'm trying to show you there. See that little bulb up there on top of that thing?
Yeah.
It's a sensor, and it helps them communicate to each other and to the computer, but it also senses the amount of sunlight, and they'll dim up and down accordingly. So it saves a ton of energy.
I like
great.
advice about that thing. That was pretty cool.
Look at this little girl. I've been the other thing I've been doing is spending a lot of money on this shit. These beneficial insects. Sorry, I didn't mean to take over the show, guys. I was really into what was going on. I just thought I'd walk through here.
No,
What
I
are the
just found
beneficial insects? What kind of insects were they?
I have a lot. I've got Andersoni. I've got Persimmilus in these little boxes. These are Cucumaris. In the soil, we have Stratiolalaps or Hypoaces. I got the wasps, little stinging wasps. And then the lacewings. What are they called? Starts with the C. I can't remember, but the lacewings and the lacewing larvae. I think that's it.
Lacewings are hungry.
Yeah, I'm just kind of hit the whole game, you know, because I took these plants in and yeah, I didn't want to spray them, so I did this and just threw the army at them.
Well, I see. So you're just being proactive by going and getting every predator for everything that might
Yep.
brought in the plants that you bring into your new greenhouse.
Right. Well, because like that part of the program, right, is like don't bring any more shit in. Crack some seeds and. But I kind of got in a pinch, and I was able to trade this for some weed that I wasn't really wanting to sell. And I just, you know, I was able to get me into production. And I smoked their weed. That was really the final straws. This stuff actually here is the Synex. And I usually don't want to buy, or I don't want anything to do with something that is as popular as Synex. But it smokes so good, I was like, all right, if it smokes good, it'll sell. That's my experience anyways.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm fixing this bed tomorrow and then planting it out. It's got all cattywampus on me. And I'll plant it out and we'll be on our way. I'm actually gonna build little mini hoops over each bed because to light dep it, because it's cheaper than buying the $20,000 light dep kit. I'm going to build these little mini hoops out of PVC and manually light dep inside the greenhouse, which is becoming a more popular technique as well.
Why don't you explain?
That's good.
Is that a convection tube up top? Could you explain to everybody about that? Is that
Oh
what that is?
yeah. So this guy, and I'm learning about some of this, to be honest. But this is an air distribution tube. I'll walk over here. You can see the perforated holes, but it's opened up on the side, on either side, and then it's got a louver on the back that opens up to the outdoors when the computer tells it. And it's obviously got the heater underneath it, so the hot air will rise and suck into that. And so the idea is that it just, you know, distributes the air evenly throughout the whole system. And it actually works really well for dehumidifying the scene, because it can just suck that air from the top in there and suck it, and also has the evac on this end. So I'm just dialing in the on-off times and the cycle times and all that. But it's cool with this computer. You can do a lot of stuff. You can have a cold dehumidification stations. You can have a warm dehumidification stations, dehu 1, 2, 3. You know, so you kind of work through these series of events. So you're not having these rapid changes. It's pretty cool shit.
I don't know what's going on with my phone. It's got 3% left on it, and I don't
I'll
have
shut
the.
up then.
No,
Okay.
it's all right, man. if I suddenly go off, it's not because I'm being rude. It's because I've run out of juice on the phone. But
Well, do you want to tell people? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm trying to locate. I don't know. I've lost the video on this show, so I'm trying to get back on. I know you can hear me, but I can't see you. Is that
no
the
worries.
camera settings? Okay, let's see if I can.
That always happens to me when I'm doing it on my cell phone. Same thing.
Yeah, sometimes when the videos, when the power starts to get low, it'll shut the camera off automatically to save power.
Oh, maybe that's it.
Right.
Because it's got 3% now.
So do you want to do you want to mention your any websites or anything that people could do to help support you, or any websites you want to mention, or anything else while you still have some juice?
Well, I'm managing to support myself at the moment. IC Mag's going fairly well, and we've got quite a few advertisers. I'd just say if anybody wants to, anybody within the cannabis industry or outside of it who wants to advertise on one of the busiest growers forums out there on IC Mag, just get in touch with us through the website. We'll be happy to put your advertisement up with many of the others that we have now. So, you know, that's what's kept me going, really, is the website more than anything. Because the seed company kind of fell flat on its face, and somehow or other, I've got to try and build that back up again. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, the members of the site have been very kind over the years that I was locked up, and they sent in seeds that were sold, and then there was a fund, and that helped me out and my family out while I was locked up. So I'd just like to thank the members of IC Mag specifically, who helped me out while I wasn't doing too well. Let's put it that way. It's gone on now. I mean, eventually they allowed me to deport back to the UK, and in a year and a half ago, the extradition squad at Scotland Yard come and picked me up, and they took me to court and they bailed me for this extradition trial that's been going on for the last year and a half with the American federal officers, alphabet agencies or whatever, wanted to try and get me over to face this prosecutor in Maine on these charges, all to do with my business, legal business in the UK of selling seeds. And eventually, even after on their appeal, which was on the 15th of March, it was decided not to send me stateside. Are you still there?
Yep.
Yes.
I'm still here.
Yeah, the British justice decided not to send me to the United States. And so I'm free in the UK now, although it's kind of tricky for me to travel outside because there's probably this Interpol red notice out there. So if I were to travel to another country and I got picked up, then I might well end up in the United States in Maine facing these federal charges with many years locked up just over the seeds of the plant. What they failed to do in court was to prove any conspiracy on my part or any instigation or incitement for people to grow cannabis. Yeah, I mean, I've not been inciting people. I've been advising people over the years that it's probably best if they do grow their own rather than try and buy it off some gang that's selling it downtown somewhere. You know, it's always been better to produce your own. Probably better to produce your own beer than go down a pub and might end up in a scrap in the bar. You never know. I'm getting a bit carried away there. Anyway, yeah, it's been a bit of an odyssey. I don't mind coming onto your podcast again at some point. I don't mind if you want to have me.
Oh, I'd love to. I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
I've got a lot of other stuff to talk about. I mean, if I was to sit down and actually write things down, different topics to discuss, get a bit more organized about it, probably we could present a better show that would perhaps interest people more than this
Sure.
one.
We'll get you on again, and we'll make sure we have a power cord for your phone next time.
All right, mate. You all take care. And
Thanks a
thank
lot.
you all for your thank you all for your kind indulgence. Toodaloo.
Yep, thank you so much, and thanks for joining us. I know it's super late where you are. I just wanted to thank you again for that. I know it's 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right, guys. I'll go and get some.
Happy
some
420.
sleep now.
Yep.
Yes, it's 420, isn't it? Happy 420, everybody out there.
Yeah. And to
Talk
those,
to you soon.
cheers. Thank you.
Look after yourselves. Bye-bye.
And to everyone in the States, happy Bicycle Day. Today is April 19th. April 19th is also known as Bicycle Day. It commemorates the first day that Albert Hoffman intentionally took the first dose of 250 milligrams or micrograms, I forget. I'm pretty sure it was milligrams, 250 milligrams of LSD, and rode his bike home from work and had the very first acid trip. So happy Bicycle Day if you are celebrating. So Mr. Green Jeans, why don't you, we had a couple of questions. I guess I'll pass them along as well. What do you think the future of seed companies is, in your opinion?
That's a good question. I think it's probably one of the most important things. I mean, I really think branding begins with genetics. I mean, I don't see, I don't see what a cannabis brand is that's not got a solid root or base in genetics. So I think that there's got to be a future for seed companies. People like Gypsy were pioneers and now there's tons of people selling and distributing seeds, and it's gotten a lot more relaxed. I mean, I personally think it's the most, I mean, but that's like you're asking, I mean, I give a man a hammer, you know what I mean? I mean, I see genetics all around, to me, the answer to every question is, oh, genetics. I'm like knee jerk, with genetics. So of course I'm going to say, and I see that there's totally a lot of exciting things going on in the future of genetics of cannabis. We haven't anywhere near arrived yet. We've just begun to scratch the surface. I'm sure I've said that before. It's going to be exciting as soon as people start doing things together. That's one of the things about, why it's silly to talk about proprietary genetics. Breeders, especially once you start getting your chops down, you got to start getting together with other people, not just regular growers that are going to help you, grow out your seeds and test your stuff, but other breeders who want to get involved in projects together, because your horizons start to expand. You start to see more and more possibilities. You want to do more and more things, and you can't possibly handle it all in one garden. So I think breeding is the key to the future of cannabis. I think we've just started to scratch the surface, and it's getting like I was saying, I don't want to say easy, but I think it's getting to a point where everyone should get involved, to some degree, if they feel like it, if they feel so inclined. Definitely dive in. It is not, it's not voodoo. It's true that it takes years and years of commitment to produce something, to produce a strain or something like that. But not these days. You can really go a long ways with just a single cross, with a single F1 hybrid. It's very important to make the exact correct choice. Choose the exact 2 right plants that are used. It doesn't mean just any Blue Dream plant and any White Widow plant. You know what I mean? It means this individual Blue Dream with this individual. And that probably is where the art of the breeder comes in. This is what people don't realize, selection is everything. Observation of traits is everything. But everyone also has an opinion. Everyone sees stuff. What I've noticed is other people notice other traits. particularly when it comes to consumption, when it comes to smoking and consuming cannabis. The things that the smells and the tastes that everyone notices is, you know, this is no one owns, no one is proprietary on knowledge of that stuff. Do you know what I mean? Everyone's, anyone who just started smoking, just started consuming this week, has valid tastes and things that they like. And, you know, that's why it's not dangerous to dive into breeding. You know, it's something you could literally think, what would it taste like if I crossed, you know, I like this and I like that, you know what I mean? What would it be like if I crossed that? I would do it. I would try it. Do you know what I mean? That's just me. But I'm saying and also I think I've said this before, it's getting a lot easier. It's getting a lot, the reason being that many plants, how to choose a male. Everyone's afraid of choosing male. Steve asked me this question, you know, my first interview, and it's one of the great questions. A bunch of people have emailed me even recently. It's one of the best questions of all, how to choose a male. Well, thankfully, it's been getting a little bit easier. And one of the reasons why it's been getting easier is because a lot of genetics, plants have many generations behind them of good genetics. So a plant
there's some kind of beeping in your background. I'm not sure.
Yeah, sorry, it's my phone. Dang it. It's all right. They'll call back. Can you hear me still? That
Yeah.
I was just gonna say that, you know, it's like the old story of and plant an apple seed and you don't know what you'll get. You might get a rose bush. And that's kind of true if you planted a seed off of a Macintosh apple, because the Macintosh is, the original Macintosh grew, what, like 200 years ago in Scotland or something like that. And its brothers and sisters probably were rose bushes or crab apples or whatever. I mean, not literally, but, you know, the joke. So in other words, it came from a very variable family. Whereas if you planted a seed from something like an Ein Shemer, a modern Israeli apple that probably has many generations of good apples behind it, you're much more likely to get a good apple. Well, cannabis is in a similar way now, in the sense that THC in content is pretty much up all around. You know, that's not a problem anymore. You know, so we kind of actually would like to see variability these days in seed batches. You know, I enjoy, I mean, I guess breeders have always been looking for variability, you know, but nowadays variability can be a really interesting thing in the genetics of cannabis.
Well, let's touch on the topic that you just brought up, though. So what particular traits are you looking for in a male? Really tight, large clusters of flowers, or, you know, is larger, you know, the same thing you're looking for a female?
Yes, try to relate them. Theirs is one of the best reasons to grow a large number of plants. Now, and sometimes, you know, it depends on the seed batch. I mean, some seed batches are very stable. And if you look, you know, then a male from that seed batch is very likely to pass on traits like the sisters, assuming there wasn't any kind of funny breeding, any line breeding or back crossing in the recent generations. You know, that stability that you're seeing amongst the females is probably transmittable to the males. And that's a good reason to have a lot of plants, is to be able to say, well, geez, there's 12 of these females, and amongst those 12, a good 8 or 9 of them are like this. So probably 8 or 9 of the males are also in a similar ratio, having those traits. But, you know, other than that, they're the obvious traits that you can choose about males. They're being bigger, more vigorous. I don't know about bud structure and how it relates to females. I think that's kind of a tricky subject. I think you have to look closer at the ratio of leaves to buds and the structure of the bud, the structure of the plant, you know, is going to be a little bit more telling, because I'm not sure, because sometimes you have males that get, you know, tremendous amount of flowers on them, and you know, I'm not sure what trait that relates to, whether that relates to in females the number of pistils, which it probably does, but I don't hold a lot in the structure of the male plant's flower usually.
A question from chat. It says, is there a large amount of variation between males and females of the same strain, such as a different funk with the males versus the females and other traits?
Not usually, not unless there's been some kind of funny line breeding or some interesting breeding plan within the recent generations. If you've got something that's kind of a strain, 2 or 3 generations down, starting to stabilize, that's one of the best ways. You know, I'm sorry it took so long to say that. It's one of the best ways to choose a male, is to choose a male from a line bred strain. Choose a male that's already from a family, you know, that I would use the term prepotent. You know, he's going to have the traits that you see amongst the sisters because, you know, because everybody does. So generally, it takes tricks to get males to have different traits than the females, than their sisters. You can generally almost always count on them having similar, but you know, and also parallel traits to theirs. Supposing the sisters are quite different, well, then you'll probably see a span of different traits in the males as well that will kind of parallel those. So you can look at one of the sisters and say, oh, well, this male kind of looks like her, you know, this male kind of looks like her. You can kind of give them, kind of put them into pairs or groups. So much as not necessarily pairs, depends on, you know, how many you have in the selection. And you know, the stability of any given seed batches is also can be very variable, and doesn't, just because something is a strain doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to be stable for lots of traits. And just because something has been recently outcrossed or recently hybridized doesn't mean it's not going to be stable. Some of the most boring seed batches I've ever seen have been hybrids, first generation or double hybrids. And by be boring, I don't mean bad as in, you know, no, I mean boring as in not so much variation. All the plants look the same.
We've heard about that strain forever and forever and forever. That's kind of what you're saying, right?
No. I mean, actually, I've seen things that are completely brand new, but I mean, the plant, every plant is the same. They're stable. There's no reason to look at more than 5 or 6 females. They're identical, or as if almost identical for most traits. And yet they've been recently outcrossed. So I'm just saying that stability is not necessarily something that goes along with a strain. You know, it isn't guaranteed. Usually you would say a strain is stable for a certain number of traits, you know, certain traits. But often the greatest stability comes from an outcross, an F1 hybrid. And that's exactly how we stabilize spinach. You know, I mean, same throughout. Same what you do with
tell people more about spinach on that.
No, I mean, I'm just saying that because F1 hybrids are generally made in the regular horticultural or in agriculture to create stability, because any open pollinated strain will generally have some degree of variability for whatever given traits. So if you plant a gigantic field of open pollinated spinach, you're going to get more different types of spinach. And if you plant your field of F1 hybrids, they're going to be more similar, which is important if you're going to be out there with your tractor and all this kind of stuff. Right, Roger? I'm talking through my hat now. I'm not the farmer here.
For commercial reasons.
Yeah, for commercial reasons.
So they all look the same.
More uniform. Uniformity.
Uniformity. For marketability.
For marketability. You can do the same. You can do the same thing with cannabis too. It's pretty common for an outcross to produce a great deal of stability for most traits in the first generation. If you cross an unrelated plant with, you know, two unrelated plants, you get stability to a degree. And, you know, and stability is like, what do you mean by stability? What's the definition of stability, right? You basically have to say stable for X number of trait, or, you know, for this trait and for that trait. You got to go down the list of the traits. And with something like cannabis, there's a lot of different traits, and so it's
It's
discussing.
pretty cool you bring that up, because we've talked about this a lot, about stability, how stability comes about, and I always love talking to somebody like you that's been doing it for so long, you know, because we all get taught certain things and we keep it, you know, we're all, what we
Punnett
believe
squares.
what I believed 10 years ago, I don't necessarily believe all that the same as I do now. You know, I
Well,
believe I've evolved, you know, and we have to keep evolving, and that's, you know, just like these strains like we talked about, and you say, well, I just did this with this and this it's good shit, you know. Yeah. And, you know, you like you said, you match them. I love that, what you said about where you were not so much worried about the way the male was, as the really the what the female traits were, you know. I mean, you know, and then you wanted to pair them for like similarity. You know, that was kind of nice for people to hear, because everybody's trying to be a breeder now. So, and I'll let you talk again, because I figure this is perfect. After we have a world famous breeder, we should have a second world famous breeder. So, you know.
Oh, I'm just behind the scenes. He makes me feel guilty, man. He's such a the warrior, you know. Talk about fighting the good fight. It's just incredible.
That was cool. That was pretty cool.
Jeez. I'm just totally in awe.
We had a podcast. We sat around and talked with Gypsy Nirvana, you know, and a bunch of other boys from California and all that. They're all growing their ass off and doing great things with food and aquaponics, and it's just the whole culture is fantastic.
He's such a hoot, you know. He's like a polite British gentleman, and you can't get him quick. Steve couldn't even get him to you know, to toot his own horn. He couldn't get him to talk about his website and stuff like that. He's really shy about that. The Australian guy was like that too.
It didn't seem like he really wanted to brag.
No, he is definitely.
I thought that was kind of cool. Yeah, I mean, you know, it's always, I know we're sitting here talking about our guest after he's gone, so he can't defend himself. But, so, you know, and you send any complaints to apmeds@hardrock.com, you know. So anyway, I think Steve had a kind of I wanted to show you something, Mr. Show Off. Show and tell. I got something for you.
His plant's dropping pollen right now. I think there's pollen sifting right out of those flowers. Look at that, everybody.
He's riding dirty on this podcast.
Should not fear the male. Should not fear pollen.
Okay.
I want everyone out there to do not have pollen fear. Have no fear of pollen. It's a beautiful thing. Pollen, it's good for you.
Next thing you know, he's going to be eating a flower of that pollen or something.
I was eating it.
Pollen, actually, the pollen's really good for you.
Yeah.
Tastes awesome.
Here, check this out. This is my little. This is my very well established, now been used a couple times, Strawberry Kush Mom. You know, I talked to this is my
sexy.
Hey,
ooh, beautiful.
You like that? Oh,
excellent.
It's really
nice.
Is it Strawberry Kush, you said?
Yep, Strawberry Kush. And this is a 1 gallon pot, and Mr. Green Jeans, check this out if you can see it.
The little pot. Yeah.
I got it half. It's a 1 gallon, but I only got it half full. It's only full.
Manage that root ball.
Yep, just managing and this was a clone, of course. It's like we talked about. Take a couple tops off. I just did that for the next generation. I got a really cool setup in there. I got the clones on top of a little step stool thing. They sell these little plastic stools now, and they fit. I got a 2x2 kind of space. You know what I mean, with the T5 2 foot T5 and I got the stool in the back where the clones are. No, actually the seedlings. I got my seedlings up there, just right under the T5 like that. And then I got these sitting in front of that little step stool. Then I got my clones in front of that on the heat mat, and there's just those steaming in there. So finally got my little possible perpetual grow, and I got a couple blue dreams that the ones that Hermie we talked about.
Yeah.
I got them to finally re-veg and they're starting to act normal again. But I don't know if I want to carry them. I started another one. I want to try, since they had that weird Hermie during the veg period, where this one didn't Hermie. See that? I mean, it just got weird. Well, they flowered. They didn't Hermie. They flowered. The blue dreams flowered. They just that hybrid. That's a thing. Well, why don't you address that since Steve has gotten a little quiet on us with
I
his question?
I think the main thing about
Well, let me ask the question if I could. What about like a strain that like the Blue Dream that might have hermied where the Strawberry Kush didn't in the same environment, and now look at it. Now this, like you said, we'll probably be using this for 2, 3, or 4 years. We'll be bragging. I'm going to try to keep this one just in honor of you for 4 years.
Well, no. So the reason is environmental issues. So if it's too hot, too cold, light leaks, this is something it doesn't like.
Yeah,
Oh,
and
yeah,
genetics too. I mean, and, sativas, anything, I think that, I mean, I really think that it's an indica trait to be non-Hermy, and that a lot of sativas from around the world are prone to Hermes on a lot of land races, especially as you get closer to the equator where everything is completely a Hermy. And, I mean, it's difficult to find anything that's not hermaphrodite when you get really far south, cannabis. So I think, and the Blue Dream is definitely a sativa-ish. I mean, it's a modern hybrid, but it's got a lot of sativa traits to it.
It's crazy. It's the craziest thing I've ever grew. I mean, I got so many flavors out of that. I understand why they call it Blue Dream. That's for sure. Wish Marty was here because we were messing around, but yeah, the land race, and it's because they've been growing so wild out, just that wild. And when you get
I have some cool stuff called Blue Hash, which is Blue Dream and Hash Plant hybrid. So it's Blue Dream with a really hardcore indica.
That sounds like my my Blizz plant. It's kind of like it's a Blue Dream, but it's got the White Wizard and Jack Herrera on the other side. It's more indica leaning. It's pretty sativa, but more indica leaning. But it's a big old beastie plant. I tried pressing some in the press the other day, man. It seems like a lot of the very terpene rich strains, something that has a really strong smell to it, seems to just basically squirt rosin. I don't know whether it has something to do with the flow, whether, I mean, I have so many questions about rosin. I have more questions than I have answers at this point. So, but I don't know whether the thickness, whether the oil flows is thinner because of more terpenes in it or something. Oh, that's root pornography.
Yes.
Porno.
Terpenes do make it flow, bro. You got it.
Really? That's what I think.
Makes sense.
I think because they're kind of like lighter oils, right? They're more aromatic, and maybe I have no idea. That sounds good.
What have you been up to, Dutch?
I have been pressing actually a little bit. I built a little press. I took a sabbatical from pressing, but I've been getting back into it. So that's been fun. And I showed you what I've been up to. I've been planting that greenhouse and working hard, getting my season going. Genetically, I've been having a really good time. I had that trip to California where I saw you, and I bought a lot of genetics from a lot of different breeders. It was something I've been wanting to do for a number of years, is really get down there. And I guess back to the question, a while back, what did we see happening breeder wise? It's kind of why I wanted to get down there, is because there's different people doing different things and focusing on different genres, if you will. And so I wanted to get in there and dabble with a bunch of that stuff, and so I did, and I bought some stuff, and I popped it all, and I got about 300 seeds that I'm staring at. 2 inches tall, third set of leaves, and yeah, a lot of it are polyhybrids, but there's also some really interesting stuff here, and I'm excited to work with it. And
He has the best genetics. Yeah.
yeah, so I don't know about that, but
What's the matter with polyhybrids? Is there a stigma to that?
I don't know. People give a lot of shit to it, but some of the stuff I'm so damn excited about, because I for one love Gorilla Glue. I haven't grown it for a number of years, and I don't even hold it anymore. But that kind of OG Kush or Gorilla Glue profile, I feel like every time I say OG Kush, whatever, but that really danks kind of it just really it gets me, and I love it. And some of the cookie strains even have that. But I haven't really grown that many cookie strains myself. But
the Gorilla Glue cuts that I saw that were like kind of low yielding, or I don't know if maybe it was just those cuts or whatever. I don't know.
Might have been. I don't know. Did you grow them yourself?
No, I didn't grow it myself. No, my friend down here in Fallbrook, and I saw it in a couple of other greenhouses too. But they were the small. One cut that I saw of it had the sort of kind of finger-shaped buds, maybe the Mazar-e Sharif or whatever, or the original train wreck cut. I remember had those like the finger. They're tight indica buds, but they're finger-shaped.
That might have been the. There's a different numbers supposedly, 3 and 5. I grew GG4, which I think is the most common one. And I think when people even just say the term GG4, Gorilla Glue, they most often refer to GG4. And that one grows like the big golf balls, It'll foxtail if it gets too hot, kind of like a traditional OG Kush hybrid from, my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I really like, I guess what I was saying, I really like the Gorilla Glue, and I got crosses on the Gorilla Glue, Cherry OG on the Gorilla Glue, Forbidden Lemon on the Gorilla Glue. I can't even remember. I got so many different things. Maybe another time I'll walk you guys through and show you all the different stuff.
That would be really cool, my friend.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, it's just going. It's a little late in the show now, but maybe next time I'll just walk through and show you guys all, because it's really fun. I mean, I probably have 20 different varieties in there that I popped, and because I kind of got myself into a pickle, to be honest, with genetics. It's just so hard with illegal stuff. I've just lost and gained, and then I was doing these conferences, and I didn't have money for the heater, and lost some stuff, and lost a lot of stuff, and so. Really, that pie hoe is all I'm kind of holding on to right now. That was really tested fire. So just having to pop some seeds, find that fire. And I just feeling so encouraged by it too, the whole thing. You were saying it like just to start crossing and start making my own seeds with this stuff, and saving the males from this stuff, and then just even making more seeds of the stuff I bought. To keep searching within those lines. I don't know. It's really encouraging, to be honest. And I'm excited. I've been growing for a long time, and I've never gotten into it, because it's always been like, well, that's like something you do for your whole life, and you work really hard at, and I've always respected that and had this great reverence. And now I'm kind of just like, you know what? Fuck, dude. I've been growing for a long time. Like, what's so bad about having a little sex here?
No, it's time. It's definitely time. It's definitely time.
So,
Yeah, well, $250,000 is pretty fucking sexy. That's what
right.
And the thing is that when you start to think about the structure of the plants and things and the way you grow, your growing methods and everything, you'll start to see, well, you probably already see, that how certain genetics doing better with your
Sure.
that like your system better and everything like that.
Or
And as
I
soon,
even see cuts like evolving with me over
Sure.
time. I've been
Yeah.
growing the one cut for 10 years and it's evolved with me.
Yeah, and you get better at it too, and that's the
Right.
thing is that I think with the family, when you start breeding like that, you'll start seeing more of those traits, coming out like right away in the first generation, the things that you already like, because you're going to choose the ones, so there's a lot to selection. The thing of it is that it's like, yeah, the thing is to be able to observe as many traits as possible, a lot of things about the plants that you choose to make the crosses, I think, is the real key these days. And because it's getting, it is, the plants are going, you're gonna have a lot of great plants. You're gonna have a lot of really good females, and it's like, you have a smoke test, and you try to test them all off. It's like, good
Smoke
luck. Oh
test.
my God, Well,
The
I mean,
smoke test is the real deal, though. Like, I'm actually
it's
sitting here,
brutality.
I'm staring at this beautiful bud here.
It's going to be brutal.
I crack it open and it smells good. I grew this from seed. It's like beautiful. Crack it open, smells good. It's like, holy shit. I roll it up, and it
It's
doesn't come
brutality
through.
when you got a bunch of plants. You can only do 2 or 3 at a time against each other. You can't possibly. I mean, back in the day, I remember I could, in the mid 70s, when potency was lower, or when we were just starting to cross indicas in. And the thing, it was pretty obvious. I mean, it was easy to sort the plants out that had 12% THC from the ones that had 20% THC. So it was like, but nowadays, boy, they're all going to be extremely good, and the variations are going to be slight in things, in flavors and smells and structural things, and the way the plant responds to your growing techniques and things like that, which is exactly why growers with 10 years of experience under their belt should start getting into breeding right now. It's same reason everyone, and also for your brand's sake. I think you wanna have your brand. You know what I mean? And that's going to really help you to sell to separate yourself from, make you a connoisseur product producer. Do you know what I mean? It's a big difference.
You hit the nail on the head too.
For sure.
About the genetics are so strong out there that are offered now. There are so many great places to get genetics that you could. I mean, it's a whole different ball game. In fact, it's actually getting harder. Well, you say you don't want to hold on to things, but it's getting harder and harder now to find regulars. So if you want to get some kind of programs going so that you've got a cachet of seeds that will produce males. I think that's important to bring into this conversation, because I've seen where the a lot of seed banks are going more autoflower and more
Absolutely.
feminized, and it's getting harder and harder to find the regular seeds of these strains. And I think it might partially be because of what's going on, that the seed banks, that the breeders in the major seed banks throughout Europe and Canada, whatever, around the world, America, even, and all the breeders in the United States, because we have a shitload of good breeders in the United States too. They're just not they just can't really be public about their shit like everybody in Amsterdam or wherever. I mean, it's funny. Gypsy Nirvana is from England, and you can go into a pharmacy with and buy seeds in a pharmacy in England. It's illegal to grow it, but you can go to the pharmacy and buy good old genetics, and probably pretty damn, realistic or whatever. The actual confirmed genetics. I mean, they just had it. They're just done it. Yeah, you're nodding your head. I see you.
That's
Yeah,
the important thing, the pedigree, the whole thing.
Yeah.
That's that's the real game of the real thing of the breeder is just telling the truth. Like I said before, I mean, I could be, Cherry Bomb comes from 6, 7 seeds of Maui Wowie in 1976. I could be lying about that. And I probably am, because it was a long fucking time ago. No, I'm not lying about it, but I mean, I'm sure I've changed a few of the details. You know what I mean? Like my daughter said the other day, "You told me it was only 3 seeds." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I only saved the 2 females and the 1 male that but and whatever, blah blah." But the whole thing is the story. It is important. It sucks that I did write things down, but every year or so I get paranoid and throw it away because, man, it's incriminating. I mean, I was in New York City, right in the mid '70s. Probably me and 2 other guys were growing under 1,000-watt, high pressure sodium lights in the mid '70s in New York City. There wasn't very many of us. And so it was dangerous. And so I didn't keep records. And so I can't tell you exactly, can't go back to my notes and see exactly what happened with Cherry Bomb. Unfortunately, it's all by memory. But that is the deal, that is what the currency of the breeder is the story, is the truth. And so going forward, people, what they're working on their genetics and their brand, to build on that is very important. I think that you don't want to invent a brand new name green crack or something that doesn't seem to have any. No, I'm not saying that, but I heard a story that the name was started in dispensaries. That they took something with a regular name like Northern Lights off the shelf and put it back on and called it green crack. And I'm not sure if that's true or not. Some people would probably dispute that story, but at any rate, what I meant was just pulling some name out of your hat, is not very cool. You got to go, you should name something that nods towards its genetic past. I remember one of the few times that I actually when a conversation with Gypsy on IC Mag was when he commented on a picture I had of a plant that I made from a cross between a Jack Herrera. It was an F2 Jack Herrera White Wizard hybrid, and it was just and I still have it, such an amazing plant that I called it Chill Jill. Actually, I didn't name it. My wife, my girlfriend, my wife, she named it Chill Jill. And I posted a picture of it on IC Mag, and I said about the name, and Gypsy came on. He was like, "Wow, that's a great name. I wish I had thought of that name." Because Chill Jill Jack Herrera, it's not too far from the name. It's not a total departure, So it's important to stick with the to choose names of plants and genetics that reflect the family of the plant that went into it. It's very important. And I think anyone trying to build their brand nowadays through genetics is going to be able to. That's the important thing, is to be able to show the pedigree. Or explain the pedigree, explain what you did, explain how you crossed it and why. And that's the key right there. As long as you do that, you're good to go.
So what you were saying is, didn't you tell us that your Cherry Bomb was the Durban poison you brought back?
No. No. The Cherry Bomb is Maui Wowie. Yeah, the Durban poison is my friend. I thought he was going to show up tonight. He said he was coming over earlier. My friend, my South African friend, who lives in Durban, and grew up in Durban, was born there, and he brought the genetics back himself. That's what I made Oreo out of. It's half that Durban poison, and it's just nice to know in that case to know that something is an actual, a lot of things like what's in a name, right? I've got a plant, a Master Kush. Whoa, you got the Master Kush, yeah. But what's in a name, right? I mean,
I agree. I agree. Yeah, sometimes you find that for years I've done that, working with different seed banks and farms and stuff, and having genetics uh, gifted to me in order to try things out and all, and some's been awesome, just incredible stuff, and I screwed up and lost it. And then there other, well, because I always had the idea to have the perpetual grow, but as you understand, in a small place, sometimes you don't get to do what you want to do. You know, uh, if you don't have any space, or you're in a less than legal area or something like that, and something spooks you, all of a sudden I think I'll flower everything, because there's always more genetics. That's what I found out. You know what? And I love, what I also, I didn't get to say anything. I didn't want to interrupt her earlier. I know you love me because I interrupt so much, but I didn't want to interrupt. But you were saying about, as you, no matter who it is, once you get a strain and you're working with that strain and clones and all, it adapts to your grow methods, your medium that you're using, how you feed it, and everything. And that, because that's what our miracle plant, and I don't care anymore. It is a
yep.
freaking miracle plant, and it adapts. You almost can't kill it. You
It's
have to really, really, really try to kill it.
I always tell people when they're beginner growers to get a hold of a lot of different clones. Don't just try to run one genetics. Either get a hold of a lot of cuts or buy a lot of different kinds of seeds. Start with a lot of different genetics, because it's going to really help you to understand a lot of things about your own growing style, basically, because some things will grow better for you and other things won't, just depending on, and everyone really gets very personal about growing. It's a weird, growing's a weird voodoo thing. Everyone, no matter, I always tell people, don't worry. Try to, when you're a beginner, try to follow somebody as much as you can. Go ahead, but I guarantee you, right, within within a few months, you're going to be doing your own thing. I've seen it a
You'll
million
be
times.
questioning the mentor that taught you. You'll be questioning him because you
And with
you
good reason, with good reason.
yeah, yeah, go
Just
for it.
because gardening is I don't know, it's a personal thing, man. As growing plants, it becomes very, people people start talking to the plants, and the plants start talking back to them. Pretty soon they don't listen to other people, or they do. That's not true. I mean, what do you think we're doing here? But
Right. I think it's real important that the young or new growers, because a lot of them are 60 years old, new growers, they're not young, but young growers just grow
yeah.
from experience. But young growers or new growers, I think I try to teach them, or always tried or thought, now I don't know where it got passed on or where I thought about this was, I think that they need to learn how to, like you said, I like the idea of the several cuttings or a few different genetics, but learn to grow the plant before you do a bunch of different experimentation. Do some simple grows, get some good grows where you learn, and then you'll start seeing what the plant does. Don't try to change systems and different kinds of grows. Like and I'm kind of guilty because I did all kinds of stuff right off the bat. But as somebody that mentors people and helps them learn how to grow medical marijuana, I really think it's important to learn how to grow the plant first before you do a whole bunch of changes. And with the aquaponics, or even Mr. Green Jeans, where he actually waters like conventionally waters with fish water. He's not got an aquaponic system or anything at this point. At this point I want to make sure I clarify. He's done all kind of crazy stuff in the past, but we're all in these places where we've only got limited room in some cases, and you have to make sure you know what you're doing. So don't try to change and change systems or change the way you're going to grow. Because if you don't succeed the first time you grow, that's happened with a lot of people. Although, like Mr. Greengy just said too, follow somebody, go to a somewhere where they're, IC Mag, I love growingmarijuana.com. Um, there's a really nice guy reopened overgrow.com. Finally, it came available and he bought it. So kudos to overgrow.com. But any of these forums, you have to find one that's friendly and that has knowledgeable people, and you have to find a grower that you can read about, that maybe you have an idea or whatever. You just find out who the people in the forum think knows what they're doing, and then kind of go around and follow them around a little bit. Learn some stuff first. Don't go and buy a bunch of seeds and plant them in a bunch of things, and then go on a forum and go, now what do I do now? Because you are screwed. You need to get a plan together. Do the first thing you need to do is get a plan together and start off, and then you can get into perpetual growing. You can get into, from buying good genetics, you can get into breeding and stuff, all the things that we always discuss here. So yeah, sorry, that's my little rant for the new guys and where to go first, I think.
I'm just saying that a variable crop is good. Good. It helps you it shows you a lot about your. It's going to help you learn about your growing style and also about what you like. That's another thing. But I do think that it's probably, breeding cannabis is probably something you're probably going to be trying more when you've already been growing it for about 10 years. It's probably not the thing that the absolute beginner is going to try to do. But having variable genetics around is really, I've seen a lot of growers, through their first 5-10 years in the last 20-30 years around this area here in California. And you can tell that having a lot of different cuts around is good. It helps people to grow as a grower, because actually basically every clone takes at least, I can't learn cut in one run. I can say I had, and for commercial, if a commercial grower wants to wrangle 10 or 15 different ones, it takes a lot of skill, and he has to learn all the different parameters about all those different cuts over all that time. And that's I think that's par for the course for anybody who wants to be. I think that's why I'm, encouraging a lot of, experienced growers to start getting into breeding, because I think we just kind of go together. You know what I mean? It's kind of the natural path of things. I think everybody's gonna get into it, or be associated with somebody who's doing it, wrangling it. But that's what I'm saying, is that as soon as you've got 10 or 15 clones, 10 or 15 cuts, you're already looking at all this kind of variability. You're seeing all these things about your growth style. The genetics, the variability of the genetics is showing you stuff about how you grow. You know what I mean? And it's also showing you can blame it, and you can just say, oh, this plant doesn't like me, these clones don't like me. But yeah, but it's also because you don't take care of this business that much, and these guys are sensitive about that, whereas this genetics over here doesn't give a shit and does fine in that part of, with that part of the system of your grow or whatever.
And by having diversity in your clones and your different cuttings, and
it can help you a lot.
It
can really
to find what you want.
It can help.
What you like. Instead of going, well, I didn't like. I've grown stuff that I thought I was going to love, like you said earlier. And when was it? Who said it earlier? Something about I rolled it up, man. It smelled good. I rolled it up, and I was nope. I think that was Gypsy,
yeah, I was saying that.
Oh, you were saying that. Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at this, looking at this weed, dude.
So if you only grow one, you'll be going, well, shit, I didn't do a very good job, But if you grow 6 different kinds, or 12, 15, one of them's going to taste good.
And then
that's
you can also see when the genetics themselves were not good. You can especially see that then. Do you know what I'm saying? You can say, "Wow, look at this! These guys really did great, and this stuff came out fantastic, and this stuff just didn't." And it's in the same exact
good point.
environment, and that's going to help you too. You know what I mean? It's important to. It's not like all the genetics are always king over you. It's not that at all. You know what I mean? Everybody needs to find the genetics they like, but also there is shitty stuff out there. There's shitty seeds. You know, not
There's a
necessarily
lot of
worth.
people taking advantage of people and starting seed banks and sending them a bunch of crap too. Yeah, and
Yeah.
the thing is look for, if you don't have friends like Mr. Green Jeans and stuff like that, you look for banks that will give you that. If you order seeds and you have issues, that you'll get some backup seeds and stuff, because almost all the best seed banks in the world will take care of you with some warranties. You know, they want to make sure you're happy because they want your business. You know, that's what it's all about. It's you know, it's we're fortunate to have finally got this opened up so much, and that's why.
Breeding is it's all about the long game. You know what I mean? I mean, you know, it's all about the long game. So any breeder who's thinking, "Oh boy, I'm going to suddenly make $1 million right now," is definitely smoking. So man, I want to smoke some of that shit because I don't have anything that good. But I mean, you know, seriously, it is the long game. You know, just to make a strain, just to cross, just to do some work. You know, a couple generations takes time. You know,
you got to find
not that
gems.
long though.
You got to find those gems, right? The male, you got to find those female gems before you can even get started.
Sort of. It depends on the idea that you have to find this one single plant out of so many or 100 or whatever. It is not necessarily true, and it kind of depends on the seed batch. Also, a highly select plant is likely to pass on its characteristics. It's more likely to be phenotypically really different than it is genotypically. Meaning,
so like a 1 in a million. If you find that 1 in a million,
it might not be such a great breeding plant. The chances of it passing on the traits, the further over on the bell curves, the number of bell curves, whatever the plant that you're looking at is, the less likely it is to pass on traits on that. It's you know what I mean? That's why you're hoping to find 5 or 10 females that all have kind of more or less what you want, and then progeny test them. You know, if you're to see which one,
you have a group to find out which one has the strongest.
Yeah, just banking everything on that one plant the way it looks is definitely not a good idea. Especially if it's an outlier of a plant itself. You know what I mean? If it's 1 out of 100, then it's really different and exceptional. It probably is an accidental cross with something else anyway. That's why it's so different. You know what I mean? Most likely it was a stray pollen from somewhere else that caused it to be so unusual in that seed batch. But if it's not, if you really believe that it came out of the seed batch that you think it came out of, and it's this ridiculous outlier of a plant, then don't bank on it passing on its traits. Definitely try to find a couple of other females that you even think might have the traits, even if they don't look exactly like her. Try to pick a few others and progeny test them too, because it's pretty likely that what you see is not what you get in that situation. Does that make sense? That's one thing I could.
There's going to be some people scrambling to Google progeny testing.
Progeny test. Wow. Yeah, grab the Punnett square. No, they probably, where's my Punnett square? I gotta test and get some dominant recessive traits. Are those traits recessive, or are they submissive? Dominant submissive traits, yes. Dominant, recessive. That's the thing about cannabis, is that not a lot of traits are dominant and recessive either. Some things like purple coloration, couple of traits really fall into neatly categorizable, but most traits are what we call variably expressed, what you would call, variably expressed, and that makes selecting for them tricky, or it means that you can't sort them neatly into Punnett squares. You don't find this neat patterns of inheritance. So yeah, progeny test. Kids. Got a progeny test. Well, you definitely have to progeny test your males. That's the deal. I mean, especially if you're gonna, sell seeds from them. You should do the customers a favor and progeny test everybody involved.
It's a good pickup line in the bar.
Yeah, good pickup line at the bar.
Yeah, I heard you. Now that Steve's blasted off, now how you doing there, Steve?
Good. I just had to hit the dab rig, and I need to move it over to my desk. It's kind of over on my table, and I need to get a longer cord.
I got a nectar collector. Did you tell me to get one of those, Steve, or did my daughter tell me to get one? It's a dab wand, a thing for smoking rosin. I just got it the other day. It's a glass wand. It's over by this, and I'm just like,
someone needs to
have a torch. I'm heating it up on the stove. I'm so ghetto.
Someone needs to make an induction inkwell looking receptacle for it, so that it has an induction heater that you could just stick it right into the induction heater. It's the one item that someone needs to invent already.
So you probably build it with a nail, right? You take one of those e-nails that come in a coil or something like that.
No, I'm talking about making an induction one, so making one that's magnetic.
Oh, wow.
That would be dope. Plus, it would be cold. Your kid could stick their finger in it and it wouldn't be hot. That would be safe. Around children or whatever else. Not that you should smoke around kids, but if they happen to plug it in when you're not home or when you're not watching them, at least they'll not hurt themselves.
That is a great idea, actually, because that's good technology. That's very interesting technology. Yeah.
So I had a chance to go to the Dude Grows Cup in Colorado over the weekend. That was a big blast. Shout out to Scotty and Dude and Grow Guru and everyone else that was out there. I got to meet Rasta Jeff from the Grow From Your Heart podcast. That was super cool. We were going to get him on at some point soon, and a whole bunch of other great people. I got to hang out with Brandon from Spectrum King. He big friend of the show, so that was really fun. Always enjoy spending time with him. So, and I just got to smoke a bunch of weed, have a great time. We were over at Cultivated Synergy. Shout out to them, and shout out to Scotty for having a little bit of a pre and post party. It's a lot of fun. Always a blast. Thanks to everyone. I got a chance to meet a lot of people from the show. Got a chance to finally meet Indica Dogo and a couple of other people from the show. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit high. I'm forgetting who else I met, but I did meet quite a few people from the chat that I hadn't had a chance to meet. So that was really awesome. So thanks for everyone for coming out, and we're working on an event here later in the summer that we'll have some information on before too long as well, which will be a lot of fun. But yeah, it was really, really cool, and always a great time to spend some time with Scotty and Dude. We're actually going to have Dude and Goguru on the show here before too long. So I think in the next couple of episodes, we'll get those guys on. And we have a couple of other great people ready to come on the show as well. But I'm going to leave those a little secret for now. Alrighty. So anyone else have anything else going on at the moment? Alrighty.
There's not a whole lot going on.
What about you, Roger? You got going anything? Anything going on?
I've been out building fences and fixing lawn tractors and I'm getting ready to chop up a bud. See, now it's time. Well, I'm trying to get the fence done so I can get my dogs where I can run in this big yard, and I'm going to put up a new 24 by 30 greenhouse, for some experimentation and try to start a little aquaponics thing, and we're gonna actually we're trying to get that today, but the lawn tractor took too long, so we're going to be dragging the purlins, the greenhouse purlins, because that's kind of how I figure out how I want to set it up. Because I dragged the purlins over there and go, okay, one would go here, and put out some stakes and all. And so, okay, I think I figured out where I want to put it. So that's going to be neat, and we're going to be chopping up all the blackberries that we've got around here and cleaning up the old greenhouse and get it back operating for food this year. And I'm debating whether to do that aquaponics or not. Right now, it's still set up the way it is. It would work, but I might try to do that the smaller house and start to where I get, like Marty said, get a mother system going. But that's about it. If everybody wants to get off, if everybody wants to wrap up the show, I'm not going to sit here and talk all night. I'm pretty booked already.
Now the wife is just coming home. I'm family. Got to get going. But
yep, it's bicycle day. We have
bicycle day.
Yes.
Well, happy 420, everyone out there and growing with Fishy Land. And
yeah, I think we'll do a short cast at some point. I'll be somewhere cool. I got a couple of different places we're gonna bop around between, so we'll have some live stuff, and then I'll send some invites out if anyone's around and wants to join us. That's from the panel. We'll be around. Thanks again to Gypsy Nirvana for getting up super late and staying up super late and spending time with us in the podcast. Big shout out to him. And have a great 420. And we will talk to you guys tomorrow. Cheers.